by those habits, every day receiving that information bit by bit by bit, we are seeing the truth further and further eroded and the actual facts of the matter being covered up. Hi, Doug Sharp, host of the National Leadership Briefing, and this is the Midweek Touchpoint. Well, if you're familiar with the National Leadership Briefing and these Midweek Touchpoints, you know that you and I don't spend a lot of time together. So it's really important that when I have an opportunity to remind you about the website and remind you about where all of the information is archived, I'm going to take full advantage of that. So nlbcanada.ca, that's nlbcanada.ca, is where you can not only register for the next briefing, but you can also see the archived information of the things that we've been covering recently, so you don't feel like you've just jumped on an extremely fast moving train. Well, last National Leadership Briefing, just to review, we spent the entire briefing focusing only on opportunities and threats that are before us, and our view on the National Leadership Briefing that we need to be fully appreciative of the fact that we have threats in front of us. We need to know that there are things that are going to be challenging for us off on the horizon, and we need to prepare for them. I also mentioned on that briefing that there are some threats that are at our door right now, and there's one that I wanted to remind you of because it's something that we did not cover on the last briefing, and that is the majority of our society's consumption daily of mainstream media. Whether you are someone who participates yourself or you know people, I want to just take a moment here to let you know that this is, in my view, one of the greatest threats that are before us right now, is the habits that are informed in people in our society of the daily consumption of mainstream media, legacy media, network news media. These things are very challenging for us because what is happening is, by those habits, every day receiving that information bit by bit by bit, we are seeing the truth further and further eroded and the actual facts of the matter being covered up more obviously. Now, there are three areas where I would say, and I've got to qualify this, because if we're going to talk about politics and these other things, these other areas of concern, I just want to remind you that I am not your father, I am not your counselor, I'm not your dentist, all of the things that I'm not. So think of me as just a friend who's just saying, from my experience, these are the things I'm observing. I'm certainly not giving you financial advice. I'm not giving you health advice. I'm just simply encouraging you to be aware of these things and perhaps help other people around you when they expose themselves to these three things that are in the mainstream media all the time right now. First of all, you're actually always going to be seeing political views expressed in legacy media, network news media now. It's always going to be inseparable from the daily news. But that is definitely a part of what people are consuming daily. So when you are receiving it, you are receiving that information daily, and there is definitely agenda behind it. It is something that is being constructed very carefully, every single word in its place, to move you down a path of believing and seeing things a certain way. So that is definitely one of the things that is a part of the mainstream media narratives these days, are the political views that are being expressed. The second thing is, of course, health and wellness. With the pandemic upon us, you are always going to be hearing health and medical information being presented daily on these news network media. All of the legacy media is going to be covering it. You're going to see the counter of how many cases and how many deaths, and you're going to be seeing all of this presented daily, again, with the use of very, very carefully constructed language to lead you down a path to consider and perceive things a certain way. And then finally, you're going to receive financial information. People are going to be constantly reminding you about the financial world around us. Things they're going to be talking about, how the Dow Jones Industrial Average is going to be handled today, or what happened in the markets today. And they're going to do it in such a ridiculous way that they want you to believe that the very limited amount of information that you're going to be receiving is enough for you to make an assessment about your own financial well-being. So if someone looks at the news one day and says, well, the news that we've got the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 30 points, if you're sitting at home in your chair and you're going, oh, that's a good thing, the market's stable and going up a bit, that's fantastic. Well, I tell you, then that is exactly what they want you to believe, that things are going well because the This one indicator is reflecting a positive upward trend. So these are the three things you're going to see all the time. Of course, aside from the weatherman always talking about climate change, you're going to see that woven in there as well. But those are the primarily what you're going to be consuming on the mainstream media. Now, the challenge with that again is that when you're watching the anchors behind the desks and you're watching these reporters, all of them have very carefully scripted language tracks that they're using. That again, you are on a just think of yourself as on a treadmill and you're walking towards an understanding of something from their perspective. So this is challenging because what if they're taking you to some place that is not true? What if they're taking you to a place to develop an understanding in you that is false about either the financial markets or your own health and wellness or your political views? Now, I would just encourage you to just consider that is enough motivation for you to take a serious look not only at your own daily consumption, but also encourage others around you, people that you care about, to take a look at theirs. When what I wanted to do today is leave you with 3 quick suggestions as to what you can do to help other people that are around you that might have the habit of consuming network media or news media, is in particular daily. If they are sitting down in front of the TV in the morning or at night and they're watching the nightly news, for example, please feel free to share with them these 3 suggestions. Again, I'm not your father. I'm not your doctor. I'm just a guy that really believes that this might be helpful to them. First of all, is encourage them to brace themselves to receive something that is intended to influence them. Just by virtue of the fact that you acknowledge that you're being influenced to see things a certain way will give you an advantage to view it in a more critical way. So for example, analyze the frame that every single story or issue is being presented within. Watch and listen to the language tracks that are being used and the inferences that they're making about either that position or an opposing position. Just be a little bit more critical and analytical and brace yourself knowing that it is designed to change your mind or alter your perception on something. Again, that oftentimes in itself is just enough to protect yourself that much more from being influenced in a negative way. The second thing is that actively seek out whatever is being presented. If you're going to sit there and go, okay, I accept that, then you should also, I encourage you, I shouldn't say you should, but I encourage you to encourage them to always take a look at those balancing views that are available out there. If you need to, just go on Bing or go on one of these other search engines and try and identify perhaps another perspective on that same issue and see if you can test the narrative that's being presented in the news media. And then finally, pursue the things that are not presented that might be of interest to you. I'll give you an example there. Is that in the network news media right now, there are, I believe, many mistruths, many things that are being presented that are askew from reality. And I also believe that we can consider some of the challenges that we're having with them, that they are committing lies of omission. It's the things that they are not reporting on that are perhaps of even greatest concern. So some of those things, if you hear from other sources, that, hey, this is something that isn't being reported on the nightly news. Like, for example, we're being told right now that inflation in Canada is transitory, that it is perhaps just it's a minor set of circumstances that we're experiencing where we're all coming out of lockdowns and we are all people that are liberated and we've got this extra money because we haven't spent it on vacations and we're all out there in the marketplace spending money on goods and services, which is driving up demand, and there isn't the supply to meet the demand. So therefore, there's this inflationary trend on the prices of everything. I mean, that is a great narrative. That's a great narrative to present out there. Very encouraging that we're all coming out of lockdowns. But is it true? Is it true that for example, is the inflation transitory? Is it only temporary? Or is this something that we're going to be dealing with not only now, but in an increasingly higher level of inflation in the future? So seek out those stories of things that are not being reported on and actively pursue them. Again, if we are going to be hanging around and communicating with people who are consuming mainstream media or network media daily, we really do want to encourage them in a nice way and polite way, because people don't like being told what to do. That's something I'm sure we've all learned but we do have the opportunity to share with the encouragements to first brace themselves and think more critically when they watch it and if they consume it daily. The second is actively seek out the balancing views. And then finally, my encouragement to you is to pursue the truths, the things that are not being presented, and find truth in those things as well. And that should help prepare you and prepare them for having a much safer experience when dealing with the mainstream media. Well, I hope that's helpful today, because it's something that we're bumping up against an awful lot out there, and we got to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect ourselves and our friends and our family. So thanks so much for your time today. I look forward to seeing you next time on the National Leadership Briefing and on the next midweek touch points. But until then, God bless you, God bless your family, and may God continue to bless this great nation of Canada. Bye for now.